Everyone thinks boredom is the enemy. You hear things like just have data, you'll never be bored. But is boredom actually the enemy or the pathway to something far more powerful? Recently, I came across an image on Instagram that made me do a lot of deep research and thinking, and I would like to share that with us today. For us to truly understand where boredom comes from, we need to understand the human psychology of time, how we relate to time. So let's start with the self. The self I'll be representing as young God, God to mean a young and godlike person, as used in the scriptures, Psalm 82, verse 6. Ye are gods and children of the Most High. So, as humans, we experience time in three different dimensions. We remember our past, we imagine our future, all while experiencing the here and now. So, if our past comes from memory, our future imagination, uh, and we're experiencing the presence, who's experiencing? Let me write that again. Uh, Pardon my writing, I've not had to write in a long time. And depending on how we relate to these different dimensions of time, we can get different emotional states. So, for instance, let's say in the past, let's talk about the past and where guilt comes from. Let's say in the past, you have experiences where you feel like you lost value, you hurt someone, you hurt yourself, you lost an opportunity or a challenge you gave to yourself. You start feeling like you have a negative value of past experience. So, this is the origin of guilt. Guilt comes from experiences of negated value. So this begets guilt. Now comes back to the present. What happens when guilt becomes excessive? When you dwell on guilt too much, you start feeling like you did not make mistakes, but you're actually a mistake. Things did not go wrong. You are wrong. It went wrong because it is you. This is where guilt turns to something far more deadly than regular guilt. It becomes demonic guilt. Pay attention. This can send you to psychological states of frenzy and even hinder your progress. But how can you come back to the past? It's simply by learning how to forgive yourself for past experiences. So, forgiveness is the antidote for guilt. Forgiveness of mistakes you've made, opportunities you've lost, challenges you've lost. Now, let's move to the future. The future happens when we imagine things. And what happens when we start feeling like our value or our security or something we hold dear is being threatened? We start having thoughts of threatened value. And from threatened value, that's where you start experiencing anxiety. And when anxiety becomes excessive, you no longer feel like it's just your value being threatened. You feel like the whole world is being hostile to you. Things are coming for you. They are up to get you. You start being agitated. And this is where Ayomaf's music becomes far more relatable to you. That's a little joke there. I like to refer to Ayomaf as Afro Anxiety. Well, he's a very talented artist. But yeah. So demonic anxiety is when you just start feeling like something bad is coming. Even before it happens, you start suffering in advance. And most of these things, they never happen. So how can you elevate from this pain, this suffering? Is by trust, trusting your future, trusting your destiny, trusting your faith, trusting yourself. We'll now come to the present now, which is the most important dimension of this among these three, because it's the only time that exists. We are always in the here and now, not in the past, not in the future, always in now. So when you start having feelings of emptiness, you don't know what to do. And this is where boredom comes from. You start experiencing boredom from feeling empty. And when it becomes excessive feeling of emptiness can now lead you to meaninglessness. So this is feeling like nothing matters. It's sort of existential crisis, which is as deadly as any of these we've mentioned. So I'm going to call this arc demonic boredom. So this is the structure of guilt, structure of anxiety, and structure of boredom. Now we'll talk about the most important dimension of time, boredom, and the most prevailing psychological state happening today, which is excessive boredom. It's kind of odd that today, while we have endless entertainment, endless stimulations, we feel bored than ever. It's funny because humans are not meant for excessive stimulation as we are consuming today. In those days, we had to walk long distances, had to wait long lines, sit in silence. Our mind had space, but today we don't even have that space anymore. We are constantly being bombarded with excessive entertainment. And anytime we feel bored, we feel like something is missing. We want to fill up our brain. But boredom isn't just an annoyance. It's not a bad thing. It's not a signal that something is wrong. It tells you that your abilities are not being used in this present time. So, in those days when you are faced with these feelings, you are forced to look for something productive, find a challenge, fill up that gap. But now with the internet, you don't even have the opportunity to confront what your boredom is trying to tell you. And this is why it's very important to talk about the next psychological state. So when boredom challenges you to look for some meaning, something of purpose, it's where flow state happens. So you see, boredom is actually not the enemy, but a gateway to something far more powerful. This fourth state is what psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, I'll have to put that name on the screen because it's Hungarian. I did my best. So he's an OG because I've met his work, I've come across his work in a lot of materials. So we're going to call that state, as he called it, the flow state. So the flow state is where time is fully integrated and progress is steadily made. It happens when your future, you trust it, the past is accepted, and now becomes meaningful engagement. The flow state is where challenge meets skill, where you are immersed in some form of intense work, you're enjoying what you are doing. It can happen when you are teaching, when you are learning, when you're just doing something you enjoy. You are just in that moment. So flow state is the state where humans create, build, they grow, they experience far more meaningful action than any of these states. The states from the diagram you can see is when the past becomes experience, the future becomes direction, and the past becomes the present rather becomes engaged action. Is the state we want to be, and boredom is the gateway to this state. Through boredom, we can unlock the door to the flow state. So, do we really want to be escaping every time we're bored, or sometimes sit with our mind and think, what is our mind really trying to tell us? What is that meaningful action we can find? What is that challenge we can use to match our skill? What intense work can we take part in? And that is why the flow state is very important. But you see, today it's very difficult to enter into the flow state because we have endless stimulation and endless entertainment. We always have our phones with us. So it's far more difficult now to find time to do something productively instead of just being passive. And it's very important that we identify this issue and know how to confront it. Because let me show you how your brain works normally. The brain works in this pattern from effort, we go to progress, to reward, to meaning. But today we just have stimulation, and dopamine. We've hijacked progress and effort straight to meaning. And meaning without effort and progress is just going to be shallow. And this consequently leads to more boredom. And that's why you can never get enough of the internet. You can never get enough of your phone. You can never feel complete satisfaction from just scrolling. There's always going to be the next video, the next picture, the next game or something to do. So it's a rabbit hole that doesn't end. You have to identify that and know how to go back to effort, progress, reward if you truly want to live a meaningful life. So this is why the community was put together, because being young and godlike is a community where we encourage you to face your boredom, find your challenge, develop a skill, find a community, build your brotherhood, because those are the things that will make you feel fulfilled and be in the present. We encourage you to find a state where you can be in flow with your skill and your abilities. Instead of numbing boredom, you find purpose in life and meaning through action. So the real question isn't how would I eliminate boredom, but the real question is what will I build when boredom comes? Because boredom isn't the enemy. Boredom is inevitable. Boredom is where transformation begins. And the path from boredom to flow is where you find progress. So if you found this video helpful, found it useful, found it important, then send to somebody you know could learn from it. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, do all the good stuff. Thank you for watching.